So I mentioned earlier, you recently published a major work titled "The Story of Scottish Art." Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, in 2016, I made a series of television programs for the BBC about the story of Scottish art, and it was a survey of art history in Scotland from 3000 BC to the present day. And it was 4 hours of telly. And when I'd finished the series, I realised that there were obviously a lot of gaps, a lot of ground that I hadn't covered. And so producing the book, which took me another 4 or 5 years, was an opportunity to write something that was a little more comprehensive. It's not an academic textbook. It's not a complete survey of Scottish artists or creative folk in Scotland throughout that period. It is my own personal journey through the subject, led by the artists and the artifacts, the objects that I find most compelling and most exciting, and indeed the painters and creators that feed into the work that I produce. It was a wonderful experience to write the book, and I found it difficult, but I learned a huge amount, and I think I'm a better painter for it.
Yeah, yeah. I started our conversation, which, by the way, has been really fascinating, with a general question about when you became interested in the arts. So I just kind of wanted to sort of end it with another, perhaps, general question, more inspired by your work in broadcasting, actually, which you briefly mentioned there, and just as a scholar and a writer and an author and a champion of cultural heritage at large and the arts. So we are now at this moment obviously communicating via the power of the internet, and the podcast will be uploaded on various streaming platforms and on the internet. But what I kind of wanted to ask you is, what do you feel is the state of the discourse and dialogue around the arts today, also given the rise and evolution of the so-called new technologies?
Well, I think there's never been a time when there has been more art, more artists, more access to art, and I think that there has been a bit of a struggle going on about who are the gatekeepers of art and creativity, and in the last 50 years or so, the way that people communicate about art, the way that people engage in, sell, and value art has, I think, become a little bit opaque. A lot of curators, a lot of experts, a lot of people have got in the way of what I believe to be one of the principal reasons for why art is so important, which is an instinctive, personal, and emotional connection that every individual is capable of with the art that surrounds us. You don't need a gatekeeper to explain to you what a painting is about. You don't need a curator's panel next to a painting for you to benefit from the artwork that you've stood in front of. And you certainly don't need a degree in order to elucidate the meaning from the art that I think matters most. All of that can enhance your experience, reading, learning, talking to other people about art, engaging with art on more complex levels is hugely important. But people, I think, have become, to some extent, a bit intimidated by the art world, and I think there are those with a vested interest who have tried to impose certain barriers between someone in the street and their enjoyment of whether it's contemporary or art from the past. I think that this period of lockdown has perhaps allowed more folk to realise that art can be just that childish exploration of mark making, and that in itself that can be a therapeutic process, and perhaps that can open the door to a more profound exploration of art and art history.
I couldn't agree with you more, actually. Yeah. Well,